Welcome back to the Power of X, where we stop guessing, start testing, and uncover the X factor that unlocks your true potential. Today, we are talking about industry standards, wives' tales, debunking the "this is the way we've always done it" mentality, and how that can be impactful or hurtful even to some athletes or even people on a weight loss journey of just doing what is popular. And in today's case study, we're talking about a bodybuilder who happened to be doing everything right, doing to the T what he was told and taught. But after further investigation using, the Alcat food sensitivity test of ours and cellular nutrition, found out that there were some things that he was doing that was actually hurting his training for his prep for his show. So, Joe, would love to hear more about that and dive into that study.
Yeah, so diving in, I will say myself personally, I am beyond guilty of industry standard preaching. Well, so I am a recovering coach, I would say, um, of just, well, this is just the way things have always been.
Yep.
We make claims out there that this particular supplement does this. This particular type of training will lead to this. This particular type of food does X. So after we say this over and over and over and over again, it just becomes almost like a dogmatic type of thing that just, well, this is just widespread. Everybody knows this. This is just the way it is. And like anything in life, health and nutrition is definitely, it's evolving all the time. And especially with technologies like we have today. For instance, for the most part, again, you might not even be a bodybuilder. More than likely, you're probably not. And this episode still matters a ton, because maybe you've had coaching, maybe you have coaching now, or maybe you're going to look into coaching. And it's yes, we should be questioning certain things, but we need to be questioning methods. We all need to be coachable, right? One of the hardest things I have is when I do train somebody and they're just not coachable, right? They just won't adhere to it. But if we ask the right questions, like, okay, why do we believe that this does this? So we have to have a method where that method is scientific standards, scientific testing, genetic testing, biology testing, right? If we can look, it's a lot easier to not be skeptical on something when I can stare their DNA and their biology right back to them. It takes a lot of the skepticism out of it. But, for instance, what I'm kind of talking about, long story, but I mean, there are certain industry standards out there that it's like, okay, well, you need to do, 3 days of HIIT and 4 days of steady state. Like, that's just what all my clients do. Or you read about a specific person who had success with that. So we automatically assume, well, that is the route to get there. But again, we're not the same person. Our genetics are different. Certain things, like, these are just things that are said. In bodybuilding, when we are wanting to quote unquote dry out or get rid of water, it's we have to expel water, so we have to dry out. Well, there's things out there like a dandelion root, right? So there, towards the end of a show, somebody might take dandelion root to help kind of expel water. They'll change vegetables from green beans to whatever to asparagus, right? It's kind of a known thing in the industry that people will move to asparagus to use the natural diuretic abilities of asparagus to magically get rid of water. There's certain times where they're supposed to stop eating salmon because the calorie content of the fat, which is fine, and go to tilapia or cod because white fish will thin the skin and help you lean out, right? There's certain cutting protocols that are out there. And that's where, even just joking, it's like, hey, what's for lunch, again today? Well, chicken, rice, and broccoli, and it's just, these are just things that are just constantly done over and over and over and over again. And clearly when we're lifting, we're creating inflammation. So, everybody should add turmeric and milk thistle, and all these different, what we would call a botanical to the protocol to help with inflammation and to help with all this protocol. This individual, their DNA showed that their MTHFR gene had a variant. So therefore, just automatically their ability to convert folate into usable 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate is what they call it. The ability to utilize that is going to be hindered. Also, B12 and a couple other B vitamins in there. Well, the coach said, you're eating a lot of meat. You probably don't need your multivitamin because you're eating a lot of meat. Well, he does the cellular nutrition test. Every single B vitamin was low, even though he's eating a lot of meat. I mean, protein intake is very, very high, but it was still, he was low in every single B vitamin. Right. So, plus we can dive into a heck of a lot more going into this, but it's just like a lot of what he was being told was actually backfiring.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I can even relate with my own training for marathons is when I did my DNA test, it came back that, my ability to increase my VO2 max is below average. So I have um, you know, a, I experience less gain in my VO2 max from high intensity workouts. And so what does that mean in my training is, well, in 2024, when I was training for my first marathon, I was training with 2 to 3 high intensity runs per week. And I mean, just based off my DNA, that's not helpful.
Right.
I need a lot more zone two, lower heart rate activity. So slow runs is actually going to improve my ability, my VO2 max ability. So like the VO2 max definition from the Harvard Health Publishing is uh, the VO2 max is the maximum volume of oxygen your body can consume per minute per kilogram of body weight during intense exercises. So it measures the aerobic fitness by assessing how effectively your heart and lungs and muscles deliver and consume oxygen to generate energy. So VO2 max is really important in a long distance race, and having the highest I can is very important. And so this year, training for the IMT Des Moines Marathon, October 18th, I'm doing a lot more slow runs, a lot more
Yeah.
zone two runs to improve my VO2 max the best I can, and hopefully break my current race time.
So, yeah. So, okay. So there's a book out there and you would benefit a ton from reading it. It's called the 80-20
Mhm.
method of running. That would be for you, but that's a book that was put out by an author I have spoke with personally, has written a ton of books. I have the utmost respect for this gentleman, but that is his protocol to running
Mhm.
is 80-20. 80% of your runs need to be really long and really, really slow.
Mhm.
But if someone's VO2 is different than yours, well, there's a different protocol, right? So it's just, these are these things out there, right? There's an author, there's a book, but one of these things that, again, is never factored in is the individual's biology. Yes, you could have read that, never looked at your VO2, and you could have read that book and said, well, this is the way to do it.
Oh, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah,
I've done that
absolutely.
my whole life, and it reminds me that our conversation reminds me of talking to a very prominent local triathlon coach. He's done 10 Ironmans, I think he said, and he trains people for marathons. He trains people, to do Ironman, and he has a protocol. And his comment to me was, "Well, if you want to run a marathon, you got to do the miles." And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not factoring in. I don't disagree to to some extent that you have to put in the miles, but at the same extent is how you put in those miles makes a big difference on the results you get. And so I think, I'm listening to you talk earlier, Joe, and I'm thinking, you remember that story years ago about well, why did grandma always cut off the turkey here? And for generations, they did that. And someone finally asked, why do you do that? You're like, what does it do to the turkey? And she said, nothing. It's the size of the pan that I had.
Right, right. It had nothing to do with any
Yeah.
form of outcome. It's just that's just what was required at that time.
Yeah. So I think we get caught up in these, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way I need to do it, and that's the standard, right? And I think you're talking about that in bodybuilding, and I'm just sitting here listening thinking, speed skating, how we had some of those same kind of ideas, and it's just funny. I mean, it's almost to the extent of what's it called when you got to wear a certain thing, or when I was competing at the national level. Funny story, true story. I had to have one skate, had to have a red lace, and the other skate had to have a white one. How dumb is that? But I'll tell you what, about the time I showed up and didn't have that, damn it, I got to fix that.
Yep. Yep. Well,
So,
yeah, and that's where like in today's world, that's why supplements, well, this guy takes this particular supplement. So, so if somebody can throw their name on it, well, therefore it has to be the best. So whatever is going on in any industry, guys. I mean, don't think of this as a bodybuilding episode. It's not, it's just, we're just going to use this as an example, right? Yeah. So don't think this is a bodybuilding episode. But it's, if somebody can get their name on whoever the top bodybuilder is, therefore they won. Therefore, this particular way is, somehow
right,
superior to any other method. And it's just, yes, it potentially could be for that individual, and that's where, when we take out the individual, then we're losing, at this point. And that's why, I've said this over and over again. How should I eat? I don't know. How should I supplement? I don't know. How should I train? I don't know. If what I'm saying is, if somebody tells you I have the method for you, but they know nothing about your biology, they are guessing. Can they get some things right? Yes, but the answer is they're guessing. It's just they don't have the best answer for you. It's no different than, well, yeah, you just have to put the miles in. Well, yeah. Well, how do you get big? Well, you have to lift the weight.
do the reps.
You have to do it, and that is very true. Yes, to run a marathon, you have to run the miles. You have to do it. To get big, to add muscle, you have to lift the weight. You do have to do it. I will agree with that forever. But the method of how you do it will be different. No DNA test will ever come out and say whether or not somebody should or shouldn't do bicep curls. It's not like, well, your DNA says you shouldn't use dumbbells. No, it is not going to say that. It's how should you use them, when you should use them, right? How often, it is going to, it's like, again, there's that reel that you recorded me saying about, getting to LA. If I got in my car, I live in Indianola, you guys, are in Des Moines. If we just at least headed west, I'm sure I could find my way to LA. But let's say I want to hit a specific restaurant or something, and I've got GPS in one hand, and in the other hand, I just, I just want an adventure.
Compass.
Yes, I got a compass and a adventurous spirit. Yeah. Both of those can get me to LA. One is going to be a lot more effective, and one is going to probably cost me a hell of a lot more money and some frustrations and some big mistakes and all that type of stuff. Yeah, somebody can get to where they're going. Well, I've been doing this and it's been getting me results. Or, well, I took turmeric and I still did a bodybuilding show. Well, it didn't kill me. I know, but what if it was inflammatory, and what if it could have took off a little bit more water off of you? What if it could have, helped your joints a little bit? versus just, again, going into this and just guessing. Because let's dive back into this individual. When we do an ALCAT test, that's the food sensitivity, it breaks it down into severe inflammation, moderate inflammation, mild inflammation, and none. Broccoli was severely inflammatory for this individual. Most people, I didn't have a single thing show up in my severe. This gentleman had two things show up. One was broccoli. He
So,
ate it. He ate it 3 times a day.
Joe, walk us through the if you can paint the visual picture of the neutrophil, because I was talking to a doctor this week and I was visiting with him about inflammatory things, and I was talking about food sensitivities and how the cell and releasing the free radicals. Paint us that picture. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so a neutrophil, again, we're going to go back to biology and junior high. A neutrophil is like the first line of defense. So anytime something comes into the body, then the neutrophils are like, right, they're like the infantry, like, go out there and go see what this is doing or not, right? If it needs to be killed, kill it. And if it doesn't, if it's safe, let it pass. So a neutrophil is first line defense. And if neutrophils don't like it, it is going to create a cellular disruption, right? So again, one of the other episodes, we kind of walk through this, and picture your cell like a perfect circle. The more and more inflammation, the more and more items that come into our body that the neutrophils have some form of reaction to, think of that cell now starting to look like an oval with like one end a little bit bigger, almost like you're grabbing a balloon. Right?
Cellular indigestion.
Cellular indigestion. There we go. It's like, if we're grabbing a balloon and squeezing it, one end is going to look all odd shaped. And next thing you know, right, that balloon is now very, very odd shaped. One side's, take a red balloon, right? One side's dark red. The other one starts turning white. Like, that's what's happening within your cell. Too much pressure on that. What happens to the balloon? Pops. Kid starts crying. You feel bad, disruption in the family. And next thing you know, your kid needs some kind of psychiatric help 20 years later because dad popped their balloon, right? So that's what happens in the balloon world. But in the cellular world, what is that cell responsible for doing? It is responsible for taking free radicals, encapsulating it, taking it to the dump where it can be disposed of. That is the detoxification pathway that we always talk about. So if that detoxification pathway is working well, again, you're going to have less inflammation, less free radicals, less cellular nutrition drain because of free radical, right? We always hear these free radical scavengers, right? They are scavenging your body for free radicals to encapsulate them, to get them into the detoxification pathway. The more and more free radicals we have, the faster and faster the decline of overall health is basically going to happen. So when these cells start bursting, it is releasing free radicals into the body before they are being detoxed. So it's constantly like it's that shut the water off before you fix a plumbing leak, right? It's just, it's just all these same type of things. There's a hole in the boat, but we just keep bailing water out. We have to cut it off at the source. And the source is inflammatory ingredients or foods or products that come into the body. That is the source. If we don't bring it in, it's not going to create the inflammatory response. So that's what's happening from a neutrophil standpoint. So now, again, we're not talking about allergies. We're talking about sensitivities, right? Nobody would say, hey, go eat broccoli. Yeah, but when I do, my eye swells up. Okay, then let's go to green beans. That's what they would do, right? Well, go to something else that's green. Because why do I say they? Is because that's what I did. Well, I don't like asparagus. Okay, then great. Then do broccoli or Brussels sprouts, right? So I would just throw some other random green food in there. because of all the scientific knowledge. Green is green, right?
Green
So,
is
but I
good.
mean, literally, that's why people say that, not because of any other intellectual purpose. It's because it's green. So if you know your colors, you can be a coach, apparently. So now this individual, we have a severe reaction to broccoli. Guess who did not have a severe reaction to broccoli? Me. I had no reaction to broccoli. So therefore, broccoli was fine for me.
Eat your broccoli.
Eat your broccoli, except him. you know.
I hear
So
that
if
all
we're
the
doing
time.
right, so so if we're doing this every single, I mean, 3 times a day, this guy was downing broccoli. Now he looks great. He's going to do great in his show. But why not identify it, eliminate that, add the foods that we should be adding in? I mean, this is just a simple thing of broccoli, let
Mhm.
alone all the other things that were on the list. For instance, he did have there was no response from turmeric, right? Because that was the first thing I always look for is turmeric, but it showed not even beneficial. So it showed no benefit, but it also showed no hindrance either. So it was green for go, but it also just wasn't beneficial. And I'm
Mhm.
sure it's heck not going to cook with turmeric. It's terrible tasting, but like if somebody liked it, okay, yeah, they could cook with it, but it's not going to be an anti-inflammatory antioxidant
Right.
for this individual. But dandelion root was inflammatory,
Right.
which again, if we're using something as a way to expel water, inflammation holds on to water also. So all these things that we're right trying to do, or asparagus was on his moderate inflammatory. So he's not going to eat asparagus, even though it's green. You know, he is not going to eat it. We literally put together an entire because yeah, we need vegetables, right? There's micronutrients that are within them, so we put together an entire grocery list of vegetables.
Mhm.
There's different squashes. Cabbage was totally fine. Cauliflower was totally fine. Those are the main ones we're going to do. But green beans, peas, broccoli, asparagus, those were all mildly to moderately, and on one of them severely inflammatory. So were carrots.
Can you talk about the ascension or the after effects of your food sensitivity test, following your green list for the first 3 months, but then what does it look like after that 3 months? Can you work in some of the mild foods that
Yes, yes.
maybe you miss some of them? I really used to like apples, but they're on my mild list, and so I stayed away for
Yep.
a while. But like,
And apples were on his moderate list. So it's like
right,
get your fruit. Another thing, avocados were on his inflammatory side, and almost every coach is like, well, we got to get our healthy fats, so eat avocados for with your eggs for breakfast, right?
right,
Egg yolks were in his inflammatory. Egg whites were fine. Egg yolks were inflammatory. So it's just like now we know all these little things in there, but it doesn't mean he can't have them,
mhm,
because if it's mild, it just means again it's exactly what it says. There's a little reaction. Mild means if you constantly eat it over and over and over and over again, mild is going to build up and be more of a chronic type of
yeah,
inflammatory response. But if it's a mild thing and you're seldomly doing it once a week or something like that, again, um, every research that the lab has done said, if you eat something on your mild list once a week, you're going to be fine, especially if we get rid of all the other things, right? It's just
so,
when we're chronically
mhm,
inflamed, you were constantly putting out fires,
right,
then even the mild stuff can get bad if we keep having all the moderate stuff also.
right.
So, if we eliminate the big ones and then occasionally have some of the smaller ones, there's really not going to be much of a response to it.
Right. So you follow your green list for, 3 months, 3 to 6 months, whatever, your coach suggests. And then you start working in some of those mild to moderate items, once a week or whatever it is. What is that the correct balance once a week, that kind of thing?
Pretty much.
And
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
also, do you then are you then able to retest? And when is that time to retest to see where your levels are at?
So I have heard anywhere up from 12 months, to like three years. Sensitivities also change.
Right.
Um, again, I mean, let's say somebody had Elon Musk's money. Yeah, I'd probably test it every 12 months. Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. Really,
Well,
these
Joe,
things can take a few years sometimes to change as well too.
Mhm.
so I think it's somewhat personal, right?
Yep.
You reference the economics of it, and that's fair and that's accurate. But 2 years ago, I took it upon myself. I go in and just send my doctor's nurse request. I said, "Hey, I want to do all my labs," and I do my lipids, I do everything blood test wise, and I chart it just to see where it's at. And so and they asked me about insurance, and I don't. That's not my concern. We could go into that another day, but the point is, I want to know where my biology, where my physiology is, and so I think that's somewhat the case here. Parks is, how often do you test? The lab would tell you your food sensitivity can change. You have to do the elimination period for 3 months, and then you could start reintroducing some of that very sporadic.
Yep.
uh, I've heard our dietitians say you could retest in 6 months, but on average the rule of thumb from the lab is every year, 12
Yeah.
months
I mean, I
Yeah.
would say it's just like your car. Like you don't need to maybe do check all of your levels every single oil change, but you know, once a year, checking all of those levels to make sure that, I think your body can, I think you can treat your body a lot like your vehicle is continual um, maintenance.
Well,
And
I'll take that a step further. Most people take better care of their vehicles than they do their bodies.
yeah,
that's a fact. That's
Wash it,
sad.
wash it and wax it weekly. And I put the premium gas in, and because what they're afraid of is is unexpected money, unexpected vehicle breaks. Well, of course I want to do preventative maintenance so that, oh yeah, you just blew your transmission. Oh, I didn't know you had to put oil in it. I didn't. Well, we don't want unexpected health scares either. I mean, your car, you can buy a new one. Well, hell, trade up and get a new one. Can't do that with our body. Can't do that with our health, right? There aren't a lot of redos in life.
No, that's so true. And so that's, I think, where this is applicable, not just to the bodybuilders, but to everybody. And I say that because I think in sports, whether it be bodybuilding, marathon, cycling, pick your sport, that's where we see the attention to it, because that's where maybe not the money is, but the fame, the glory, right?
Performance.
Yeah, but the lessons that we've learned and the information that we can take back is how we can improve upon our wellness and our health for every day. And
Yeah.
I think that's the point that I'm hearing is gosh, this is so important just to be healthy and improve your longevity. Longevity is a hot button right now on all the socials. And so I think it's just something that we need to help people better understand is this isn't just for bodybuilders. This isn't just for people who want to run a marathon. This is for anybody and everybody to improve their health, to get up and down stairs easier,
Yeah.
to go for a walk in nature. I mean, just all the different quality of life.
I think, it's funny you mentioned that. And I've said this in the past, but it's like people will do extreme things for increased performance. I mean,
Right.
it's just, hey, I'm going to test all this stuff so I can see the best way to run a marathon. Well, let's just face it. I mean, running marathons isn't necessarily the healthiest choice we can do. I mean, let's face it. The first person that ran a marathon actually died, so literally, I mean, that was why it was 26.2 miles. You go, yeah, the first human that ran a marathon died. So humans said,
let's do
let's
more.
try that again. you know,
Let's do that
you know,
again.
I'm gonna do all these tests so I can perform very well in a bodybuilding event where I can go be three. You know, again, it's not even a healthy thing to do. You know, so we do this because I think a byproduct of just being American is just, you know, performance. You know, I have to do better at something. Like, you know, I'm going to go do cardio, I'm going to go lift, I'm going to go diet, I'm going to go do all this stuff because of how I'm going to look or how I'm going to perform at something. Very few people, if any, ever say I'm going to push past my limits, push really hard because, man, I can't wait to see what my A1C levels are in 6 months. You know, it just that should be a very motivating thing. You know, I can't wait to get my VO2 improved so I can live longer, right? I can't wait to improve my lipid, you know, panels because I want to live longer. It's, you know, I'm going to go do all this stuff because I think it's going to make me look good, you know, at the pool when I take my shirt off. You know, like those are things that people can get excited about. But yeah, rarely do people, you know, get all the motivation from the actual health benefits they're going to receive after doing it. It's almost like those are byproduct, right? Your health is almost like a byproduct of trying to, you know, to perform better at something.
Right, right. The
Right,
vanity
right.
trump card. Yeah, for sure. But I think there's plenty of people out there that have neglected the automotive maintenance for long enough on their bodies that this would have a profound impact. And I think
Yeah,
that's the thing that we continue to see at X Factor is how often these tests come back and you're just like, yep. And it's so it just reconfirms it every single time I look at a test that, yep, there it is. Everyday stuff that is causing, you know, problems that social media tells us are beneficial are actually problems. I don't know that we've done an episode yet without Joe's TTS, traumatic turmeric syndrome, but you know, it's just those things. I mean, it's the stuff that we've been told and we keep beating in, and yeah, for some people, turmeric is great, just not everybody.
yep,
And it's that second part that doesn't get told, and I think that's the point where, you know, it's an old saying in sales is, you know, be careful of where you get your advice and what their motivations are. You know, if they have something they're selling, then you be leery of the advice you're getting to understand the motivation behind the advice. And I think that's where we're at. I was listening to, you know, your opening response to Parks's question, and I couldn't help but think, yeah, put somebody's face on a label and that's good for everybody. That's called marketing. That's not science, that's not wellness, that's not good advice. That's marketing. And if you don't believe me, enter a picture of the Marlboro Man.
Hey, y'all
So,
remember Wheaties?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
The worst cereal in the history of mankind, and I ate boxes of that because Michael Jordan ate them. It was
Right.
worst. It was the worst cereal ever.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the endorsement marketing mentality. And I think unfortunately, that's where our healthcare system has gotten.
Yeah. Well,
You
I mean,
know,
you
it's,
know, I look back. I mean, my advice. I was two-time MPC Midwest Coach of the Year. I mean, I had a lot of clients get a lot of success, even in bodybuilding, and I was like, well, my clients do steady state cardio. We walk. Why? Well, because that's what worked for me, and I just hated running. You know, I was like, I don't want to do HIIT. If
yet
I
you
can
were a
get
runner as a child.
right, if I could get lean by walking, that's what I'll do. So then all of a sudden I start running DNA tests, you know, and this is where things came back. I mean, I don't want to say it backfired on me, but it did. I mean, I've got clients of mine that I'm running these DNA tests and right methylation tests. They're like, oh crap, I did tell you to get that supplement. I'm like, yeah, sorry, we're not going to do that anymore. Or hey, this shows that you know what I was wrong with your cardio protocol based on your biology. You know, but the difference was I didn't set in and say, what if I am wrong? It was okay, I am wrong. You need to do this differently according to my research that we've done. And it's not my research, it's according to your biology. according to your blueprint, this is what you need to do. I own up to it because I just didn't know. It's not like, I mean, there's a difference between ignorance and being naive. There's a really big difference. Naive is I just don't know. Ignorance is you know and you still do. that's
Well,
that's the
further
difference.
is, yeah, I would call that willful ignorance,
Right, right.
you know. Uh,
Negligence.
yeah, to a point, for sure.
Mhm.
So Joe, like, all right, so some of the people listening, they're jiving with what we're laying down here. What do I do?
So it always comes down to how bad do you really want to just know? And that, it's just like that question, right? How often should you be doing these? Well, I mean, I don't know, how healthy do you want to be? First off, yes, we have multiple different tests that can be ran. Best case scenario, yeah, you should have all of these done. I mean, if you really want a really good picture perfect way to figure out how in the world you should be living your life, run the test, but also reach out. But it's one of these things too. Any one of us, it's not like I'm just going to say, here, go run a test. Here's your information. Have at it. All of us are probably guilty of over explaining half of this because we enjoy it. We love it. It's something that, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk, trust me, I can talk to you, and you're going to really want it afterwards. But reach out to reach out to any one of us. I mean, we can literally paint the picture of, okay, this is my past. This is what I want to do. What's my best route? Okay, I think you really need to dive in to this particular site, right? So we have to get to know what it is that your goals are and what you're wanting to do. After we can do that, we can say, okay, this would be the best package or this would be the best route for you to do. But there's no way around it. You have to do some testing. You have to. I mean, again, you cannot guess your way through this stuff. There's just no way to do it. You have to do some testing.
There is another form of testing, and we've talked about it before, that doesn't necessarily upfront cost money, and it's the do it DIY version of journaling, elimination, add it back. And I can tell you from experience, I've done that and it takes a long time.
Long time.
And so
Trial and error.
that's still testing. It's just doing it on your own and documenting. And my experience and what I've witnessed with others, and I think it's fair to say, is that's long, tedious, and most people won't be able to do it effectively.
Yeah, and still probably 50% accurate at best.
Right, right.
Because one of the problems with sensitivities is you're not really, really, truly showing symptoms that are like able to feel what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, you're not eating peanuts and your lip swells up.
Right. You could potentially eliminate probably 50%, and there'd be things on there that just absolutely shock you.
Well, who would think broccoli's bad?
Broccoli, and that's, we talk about, I was saying earlier, free radical scavengers. I would go read a book and they would say resveratrol is one of the best free radical scavengers available, which it can be. Well, the amount of people I do tests on that resveratrol shows no benefit is very high.
I also think that's another form of treating the symptom rather than treating the source. It's like,
Exactly.
why not change your eating habits and patterns to reduce the amount of free radicals instead of just trying to band-aid the problem.
Yep, exactly.
Well, and there's other coaches out there, and I think they genuinely want to help people, and they're trying to help people, but they're stuck in the mindset of, yeah, I don't know, that just sounds like another, goofy thing right now that I'm just going to recommend, calorie deficit, cardio. And what do you say to those people who may have a coach like that who's genuinely trying to help them, but they're just, I mean, this is what, Joe, you and I, and we aren't making this up. This isn't like something we cooked up. What do you say to that person, to that coach?
It's a tough, I mean, it is, it's a tough one because I have these conversations quite a bit now with people. I've got a functional med doctor that does this, and this. And, well, what type of tests? Are they doing cellular tests or blood serum tests? Well, it's a blood serum, Yeah, but they mean really well and they're great and I really like them. I'm like, it's not, it's not a personal attack. It's
Right.
just, and they even said, because she goes back and forth. Well, Joe said this. Well, they said this, and Joe said this, and literally, I'm like, they're like, yeah, it's not the most accurate, but it's like, well,
Hello.
I mean, it's like, I'm like, you have to. I would say it really depends on it, because Jim, going back, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I helped 34 people lose over 100 pounds before I even ran a test. I was NPC Midwest Coach of the Year twice before I even ran a test. I mean, I was like, well, I know how to do all this stuff. I probably would have been, this is insane. There were points and times in my career I'd have been like, I'm too busy to figure that out, and that would be to my detriment. One of the things I always warn people around getting advice is, it's like, if somebody is always set in their ways, you have to watch that anyway. I mean, I don't, if you're not changing your mind on certain things, or at least open-minded, especially in the areas that are constantly evolving and changing,
Right.
there's certain things that I am not open-minded with, right? I mean, there's things that's like, nope, absolutely not. But with things that are like, our biology, guys, this is changing all the time.
Well,
Right?
it's somewhat of a moving target, right? I mean,
Yes.
inputs, outputs. I mean, there's so many things that are changing and variables. And right now, I know that the headline advertisements are microplastics, and
Yep.
it's like, God, that does impact science and where things are at, and what we're professing is part of the revelations that are coming out of the Genome Project, and having now the ability to test and understand it. I met you a couple years ago. What changed for you? Why did that all of a sudden? I mean, you used to make recommendations on cardio, on strength,
Absolutely.
on food, and what changed for you that now you're on the bus?
So I was already looking into some genetic sides of things where it got me questioning myself. So when we did meet up, it was like, this is exactly where I need, it was almost like I was ripe for the picking, so to say.
I got you at a weak moment.
Yeah, like, we always look at timing. It's like, I remember like my wife saying stuff like, I wish we'd have met, sooner. I'm like, I probably would have messed it up. I don't know, like, I don't think I was, it just, there's just certain times in life where we're open and when we're not, and timing has a lot to do with it. And that's why I always just tell people, it's just, don't be so close-minded, especially in things like this. And it's like, and if you have a coach, sometimes it's in our approach of how we ask these questions too, right? Well, Joe told me you're dumb if you don't do this. Well, then they're automatically going to be, well, who the hell is Joe to say that? It's hey, have you ever looked at this before? What do you think this would mean? It's if we do have a coach, if we are getting advice, it's are we telling people what we think, or are we asking questions in a like an open conversation to get people to explain their thought process behind where they're at,
Right.
versus like attacking people. It just, because anytime somebody attacks somebody, the gloves come on and it's like, okay, I'm ready to fight. And I always just, because I would just say most coaches, and I fully believe this, most coaches are open to learning new science because they constantly are. It's just usually the science out there is some new
Marketing.
study on a supplement, some new study on, keto, Mediterranean zone,
Peptides.
yeah, it's just what type of science are we actually looking at? Something that can be done instantly to go change some, this is the newest, it's that target has moved to quickest, fastest, most deliverable results possible. And if it's fast and easy, we always say it's usually sleazy or whatever, and that's kind of it. Just, I mean, there's certain things that will always remain true. And we identify our biology, we identify a plan, we run a diligent plan that can be sustainable. The long, slow, boring approach, right? I mean, the tortoise and the hare. I mean, what did we learn about that? Most people didn't learn anything from the tortoise and the hare. You know, the little engine that could. All the dumb things we always hear growing up. Most people don't ever learn anything from those.
Oh,
You
that's a
know,
cute story.
they can repeat it over and over again, but what do they constantly pick? I want to be the tortoise. No, they want to be they want it quick. They never pick the tortoise. They in life they never do. Not that
Right.
this takes forever. It doesn't. I did it in a bodybuilding show and turned it around. I turned the ship very quickly. I mean,
What was
these
that?
aren't things.
12 weeks, 16
Right.
weeks?
Yeah. These aren't things that are taking decades to come to fruition. You can turn the ship around quickly, but
Right.
it's also one of those things that's like, okay, yes, you identify your biology. You're also going to identify it's your daily habits too, right? It's you. Most of our fixes out there are tell me it's not me, tell me it's something else. No, it's you. you are the you, you are the variable. Your problem looks
No, it's pretty much you.
your problem is looking you in the mirror every day. You just it's whether or not you want to come to grips and go to battle with yourself or not.
Well, the quick story. So I was talking to this doctor the other day, and we GLP-1s came up. I full disclosure, I do think they have a place, but they're for like a very, very small percentage of people.
Yeah.
But his son-in-law is now taking GLP-1s and lost like 20 pounds, still eats like garbage, and still drinks, I think he said like a six-pack a day. And because he was so obese before, he could drink the six-pack and not get drunk. Now he's just a skinny drunk and on a crash course for disease.
Yep.
So this guy's taking the GLP-1 so that he can continue to eat like shit and drink, and he's happy because he's lost this weight. And that's just so mind-blowing. But that's what our culture, and unfortunately, that's what our medical community is supporting.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's not, even down to politicians. I would just love for a politician to come up and say, oh, all of your problems are your fault. Well, what are you going to do? Nothing. It's you. It's parts. We were talking about, right, personal excellence, and it's that people need, and this is for, and most people listening to podcasts, most of our listeners, you're into personal excellence. This, right, we're talking about the other ones that know everything already, right? We're obviously not talking to you. You guys are learning, you guys are listening, you guys are wanting, that next era of personal excellence. So it's just, you can, again, force it upon people, but at the same time, again, they have to want it. So that, that's our biggest thing. If somebody wants it, the tools are there to get the most effective route.
Yep.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. So everybody, thank you for tuning in and you know listening to this episode. And if you're interested in learning more, there's going to be a link below in the description.
Yeah.
But until next time, make sure you stop guessing, start testing, and let's find your X factor.